So, welcome to Poly Role Models. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Shadeen Francis. I'm a marriage and family therapist here in Philly, and I work I would say probably a big portion of my practice right now is poly folks.
Okay. Oh, then how long have you been polyamorous or been practicing polyamory?
So I was historically poly or probably not poly, non-monogamous. And now I'm in a long-term monogamous relationship, and so I've translated some of my personal experiences into wanting to learn a lot more about different kinds of relationships. So I probably realized that I was non-monogamous around the same time I started dating. So I don't know, maybe 12, if you can count that as dating, and then have been in a long-term monogamous partnership.
And that is what your relationship dynamic looks like currently?
Yes, so right now I'm in a monogamous relationship.
Okay. All right. So, in terms of polyamory, what aspects do you feel like you excel at?
So I'm going to answer that in some ways about my work,
Okay.
if that feels okay. And so in looking at the folks who come in, I think that one thing that we're able to do really well together is negotiations. I feel really confident in helping other people negotiate the context of their relationship. What is it that I need? What is it that you need? And then how do we find space for our needs to overlap even when they seem like they contradict?
Okay. And I guess framed around the work in your practice, is there something that you struggle with?
I think that maybe even a larger struggle is just by the nature of having relationships, your boundaries change. And so I think I see folks most consistently struggling with what happens when something that was okay before isn't okay now. And those tend to be folks who are in active crisis, and those tend to be situations where people are really worried about the future of their relationships.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. And so how do you help people address that as a struggle?
Yeah. Sometimes it's about just transparency. Folks do a lot to protect their partners and also themselves from the potential of a breakup, especially when we don't actually want one. And so helping encourage people learn how to be transparent in ways that are safe, ways that are honest, ways that really allow them to have, real conversations. I don't know if there's anything that can be done about boundaries that are different in and of themselves, but there's definitely ways for folks to have that conversation better.
Okay. Do you address safer sex concerns in your work?
Sometimes there are ways in which folks are, not being respectful to the boundaries of their relationship by virtue of not practicing safe sex. And sometimes the early anger of relationships is about, well, why are you fluid bonded with that person? Or, I feel like you have put me in an unsafe position. So whenever I meet with folks, that's a conversation that we do have just to make sure that everything is really clear and upfront. I'm super big on transparency.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Now maybe not in the context of your current relationship, but what's the worst mistake you've ever made in your polyamorous history, and how did you rebound from that?
um, so I had this idea that everyone was non-monogamous, just deep down.
Yeah.
And so in having conversations with folks as I was starting relationships, it wasn't that I would like skip over the conversation, but I just sort of treated it like it was like a given. Uh, and it wasn't.
Uh-huh.
So really learning how to actually have the whole conversation start to finish without making assumptions that were really rooted in my understanding of the world, and to really check in with folks about like what did you hear me say? What do you think that means? What do you think that's going to actually look like? And at the time it was a lot bigger of a conversation than I was ever expecting it to be, and probably bigger than any of my partners at the time were expecting it to be. But I think that was the only way we were going to bridge that.
Fair. Fair. Well, what self identities are important to you, and how do you feel like these self identities intersect with your relationship style?
So an identity that I'm realizing is more and more central, at least at this point in time, is that now that I live in the States, I'm from Toronto. So being an immigrant matters a lot right now, and nationality matters a lot right now, especially just with some of the political climate around immigration. Being a person of color is really important to me, just in general. I identify as a woman, so that ends up being pretty central. Um, some things around orientation, um, you know, I center myself on privately, and more I'm starting to realize the significance of being a middle child
Okay.
and how much that informs how I, even have conversations with people.
Okay. Fair enough. All right. Well, do you have any groups, projects, websites, blogs, etc., that you're involved with that you'd like to promote?
Yeah, so I am on Twitter under my name at Shadeen Francis. And I am working on some upcoming projects, so that would be the best place for folks to keep in touch with things as they're happening. I also have a website, and it's, again, my name. I'm easy to find, shadeenfrancis.com. And I post more of my professional stuff on there as well. So if folks want to know more about me as a just regular human, you can check me out on Twitter. If you'd like to know more about the work I'm doing in specific, you can go to my website.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time and answering the questions and just being a part of Poly Role Models.
Thanks for having me.